We are going to go ahead and get started, and this is Stephanie, and I want to welcome you to our online advocacy training session, Advocating During the Election Season. And for anyone who hasn't been on one of these calls before, have no worries. We'll explain all the muting and unmuting and what's going on when we start. But I, first of all, want to make sure that the audio is working. So if you can hear the sound of my voice, and you can find a little button on your screen that looks like a hand. That's your raise your hand button. And if you can just click that button, I'll know that you can hear the sound of my voice, and we'll be ready to go. So I have some hands raised here. Great, great. All right, I think I have a plethora of hands raised, so I'm going to go ahead and lower all your hands and assume that our audio is working well. Now we're going to start with a little bit about the online training session. We're going to then share with you some information about who's speaking. We're going to get a welcome from the American Association of Museums. We're going to start out on where to get started, some specific techniques for museum advocates in advocating during the election season. So, first of all, what's happening? If you haven't been on one of these calls before, basically what's happened is you're viewing a PowerPoint on my screen in my office, and you are seeing everything that's on my computer. So I promise I won't do anything else while I'm doing this session. Everyone is joined in a mute-only mode, so that just means that you won't be able to speak up to ask questions. But you should see a question box on your screen where you can send questions through a chat room. And you also may have noticed that I was sending little updates about how soon the session would start, and so you could also send a question through there. So that's the best way to do Q&A. One of the questions we always get right at the start is whether there will be a recording available and follow-up materials. There will, and I'm going to show you the page here on AAN's site where you can get that information, and you'll see that these are the past ones, and so as soon as we get the recording from this, you'll be able to see the future ones. Now, I should just note it takes a while for my computer to convert the recording, so if you can have a little patience in making sure that you give us enough time to get that posted, that would be very much appreciated. Now, the next question is always, who's speaking? Who is the disembodied voice? And it's mine. I am Stephanie Vance. I'm known as the Advocacy Guru. And you can see me reading my book, Citizens in Action, here on Capitol Hill, because that's what we do on Capitol Hill. We read books like Citizens in Action. And I am a former congressional staff person. I worked for 3 different members of Congress, and definitely learned a lot about advocacy from the perspective of the congressional staff. So I hope that you will learn a little bit about how the advocacy works in working with staff, not just in Washington, D.C., but also in state capitals and at the state legislative level. Now I want to turn it over to Ford, who's going to officially welcome you, because you're not officially welcomed until Ford does so. And he is the president of the American Association of Museums. And Carla, I've opened up your line so that Ford can share with us his remarks. So Carla and Ford, go ahead.
Thank you, Stephanie, and we're so glad to be working with you once again. And I want to welcome everybody to AAM's online advocacy training session. Our free online, part of our free online advocacy training series, and we're so glad all of you are joining us today. Today's program is focused on promoting the value of museums during the upcoming election season, what you are allowed to do, and most importantly, how to maximize your impact. Election season is the perfect time to get to know your elected officials and the candidates who are running for office, because they're in the community. They're out there meeting with constituents, and especially now, they want to hear what matters most to you. As a museum professional, you have an expertise that is valuable to elected officials and candidates, and we cannot undervalue that expertise and the value it brings. You can help those elected officials understand how museums support the local economy. You can help them understand the key role that museums play as partners with schools in teaching the curriculum. And you can help them understand how museums are bringing communities together, promoting cultural diversity and celebrating our cultural heritage. You can help to make sure that museums and the essential services that you all provide are part of every candidate's platform and priorities. Again, campaign season often allows you to do this face-to-face. And when you begin these relationships early on, you can build on them for years to come. In Chicago, some of our museum colleagues got to know a young Barack Obama before he was as famous as he is today. They met him as a candidate for U.S. Senate and the state legislature. Once he was elected, they were able to testify before his committee. Our future governors and mayors might today be a relatively obscure candidate running for office in your town. But once elected, your local officials, who knows where they're going to end up? They may end up in the state legislature or even on Capitol Hill. So building these relationships early on is key. Now, you may be aware that AAM is working hard to implement our 5-year strategic plan. And one of the key goals is advocacy. That is, making the public case for museums more effectively. Another goal is sustainability. And in this economy, we're all striving for sustainability as individuals and as organizations. And being an effective advocate to elected officials, to donors, and to your community is the key to sustainability. Here at AAM, we're doing our part to help you through this difficult economy, offering numerous professional development opportunities to give you the tools you need to do your job and networking opportunities that will help you get ahead. So I hope you will join AAM today if you haven't already. Through AAM's professional development seminars, workshops, and webinars, our great menu, great program, great prices slogan is absolutely true. There really is something for everyone. So please visit our website to learn more. You can also visit our website to learn more about the museum field's premier professional development opportunity, the AAM Annual Meeting and Museum Expo. In 2011, we'll be in Houston, Texas, and I hope you'll join more than 5,000 museum professionals for 3.5 days of creativity, connections, and renewal. If you register this week, you can still do so for just $350, which is $150 off of the full registration rate. AAM has a lot to offer, and I want to once again personally invite you to join us as a member. You'll receive your very own copy of the award-winning Museum Magazine. You'll receive a discount on more than 300 titles from the AAM bookstore. And of course, you'll get access to AAM's Information Center, which offers expert assistance and confidential, customized guidance on any museum matter. So I want to thank you all for being here today to learn about becoming an advocate during this important election season. And now it's a pleasure for me to turn it back over to our very own advocacy guru, Stephanie Vance. Stephanie?
Great, and thank you so much, Ford, and for that wonderful welcome. I know people will be excited if they haven't already joined AAM to do so, and hopefully this online training will make us even more excited. Now, where I want to start is to get a sense of where folks are in terms of their advocacy journey and how many people are gathered with them to watch this particular session. So I'm going to start with a quick poll, and hopefully you should see something on your screen that is a question: how many people are viewing this with you? Is it just you? Are there 2 or 3 people? Are there 4 or 5, 6 to 10, more than 10, thousands? Well, we don't have thousands on here, but we'll wait for folks to give us a sense of the number of people who are on the call. And we have 81% voted. And since this online training is about elections, we definitely want to get to at least 90%. So we had a little bit more. And I've got some notes in the Q&A about the number of people, so I'm guessing that means the polls aren't showing up, but that's okay. I did get the note about the number of people, so that's great. All right, and we've got 90% in, so we'll close the polls and share with you the results. You'll see that 82% say it's just them, 2 to 3, 7% say it's 2 to 3, and 6 to 10 say it's 11% say it's 6 to 10. So you'll see that we do have a fair number of folks on the call, and we're looking forward to a great session. Now, excuse me, we also want to do a quick poll on where you are in your ability to engage folks in the elections. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that one. And so you should have an opportunity, again, to let us know if you haven't done much but are eager to start, if you try to engage outside partners, if you've done some of this at the local level, if you've done a great deal of this work. And I should mention, if you've tried to engage outside partners but haven't had a lot of success, that's what that second one should say. It just didn't have enough space to fit all that in the question. So we're waiting a few more seconds here for the rest of the votes to come in. We've got 81% of the votes. I'll just wait a few more seconds to make sure everyone has had an opportunity to vote who wants to. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the polls and share with you the results. So 44% haven't done much, but we're eager to start. Another 44% have done some at the local level, and 12% have already done a great deal of this work. So if you've already done a great deal of this work, then I hope that you will share with us some of the things that you found most successful, because I think it's important that everyone can learn together on these issues. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. One of the first questions people often ask is why get involved in the elections? And from my perspective, there are some key reasons. First of all, it really raises the profile of museum issues, both during the campaign and long afterwards. It offers a new and often invigorating way for museum supporters to get involved. Most people, when you think about it, they don't necessarily think of advocacy with their elected officials as the most exciting way to become involved in the legislative process. But many of us are pretty excited about the elections and how they work. So that can often be a great way to get your partners, whether it's trustees, people who come and visit your museum, volunteers. It can often be a great way to get them engaged in the process. Also, I think it enhances your access and your reach with elected officials. If you are involved in their campaigns, frankly, they probably get to know you a little bit. And as Ford mentioned, it's definitely something that they're thinking about now. So when they do become elected, whether it's at the state or federal or even local level, they'll definitely know a little bit more about you, which can definitely help your reach with them and your success with them when you're advocating on policy issues. And of course, the very important idea that it's civic-minded. It's an important part of democracy, and frankly, I think getting involved in the elections is fun. One item I didn't put on here, but I think is probably important, is you definitely don't have to. If you're frustrated with the elections and you're frustrated with politics, voting is one way to make sure that you have the opportunity, frankly, to whine about the outcome. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that if you are upset about how Congress is operating, and I know many people are, if you don't vote, it's very difficult to make your case that you think that politics are in a difficult place. So at least vote and encourage others to do so, and you'll have practiced your civic-minded duty. All right. So besides voting, how do we get involved in the elections, and how can museums get involved in the elections? And we're going to talk about 10 specific techniques. And we're going to wrap all this up probably a little bit before 3 o'clock. So as we talk about these specific techniques, I want to make sure that you all are able to scribble down a lot of notes, because we're going to move quickly through many of them. All right, the very first thing, though, is to make sure that you know all the rules. So one terrific resource that I want to make sure you know about is museum advocacy in an election year. And one of the questions we always get is, will these materials, will these links be available? They will be, and you can either link to them directly through the PowerPoint, or we'll be able to get those links to you directly if you think that that's going to be helpful to you. Now, the Speak Up for Museums Election Year Museum Advocacy page has a lot of great information. We're going to share a fair amount of it with you. But the main rules, I know a lot of people are concerned, you know, we're a nonprofit, what can we do in advocacy, what can we do in elections? And this really outlines it very well. the basic rule is that advocacy is fine, but election involvement is not. So not involvement in terms of just getting voter registration and getting people engaged, but more in taking a position for or against a candidate for political office, whether it's at the local, state, or federal level. So you can certainly be somewhat engaged in the elections. You simply can't choose particular candidates that you might want to support. So the very first thing you want to do, the very first technique, is to make sure that you know the rules. All right. The second one is to make sure that you learn about the candidates and the issues. Before I go to that, I'm going to make sure that I'm addressing any questions we have. And we do have one on how to engage without being trapped by donation requests, push polls, party line issues, etc. That is a great question, and it's a difficult one because I'm not sure that you, once you give them your address, it is difficult to be engaged without those kinds of things. The best option I can suggest to you is that as long as you make it clear to the elected official that as a 501c3, you are prohibited from electioneering, often they will sort of back off on some of that. But as an individual, I will say it's very difficult to avoid being trapped in some of that, and sometimes the best thing to do is simply ignore it if it's not useful to you. Now, the next point is to learn a little bit about the candidates and the issues, and there's some great resources here I just want to show you a little bit of. The Ballot Initiative Strategy Center at ballot.org. And again, all of this information is available on that Speak Up site that we just looked at from the American Association of Museums. But you'll find this particular site has got some great information on a variety of ballot measures that are occurring in every single election cycle. So you'll see you can get some recaps of what happened in 2009. You can get information on the gubernatorial races, Senate races. For example, when we click on this map and we want to learn a little bit about Texas, we'll see that it's a non-initiative state, and it will tell you a fair amount about the different opportunities in your state to make a difference in what's going on. Congress.org, this is a great resource on learning a little bit not just about your elected officials, but what's going on in the various states and the election news. The best place to get this information is to scroll all the way down to the bottom because they usually change a lot of these different links up top, and to click on Election Candidates and Info. And here's where you can get some information about the various races, even down to your specific zip code. So you can type this information in, and it will tell you a little bit about what's going on in your particular area. Now, another resource that I want to show you is Open Secrets. This is a fun one because it tells you all about what elected officials, what kinds of money they're receiving, and who they're receiving it from. And you'll see this is kind of a scary one right here. The cost of the campaign 2010, over $3.3 billion. Yes, that worries us a little bit, but it is an interesting thing to see all the funding that's going into these campaigns. Now, the best thing that you can do if you want to learn a little bit about some of your elected officials is to click on the members of Congress, and then if someone wants to enter in the name of an elected official in the Q&A box, I will go ahead and look up that specific elected official. And while we're waiting for someone to type in a name, I'm going to go ahead and pick one here. Let's choose Nancy Pelosi. When you click on the elected official's name, you get some information about the amount of money that they have raised and the amount of money that they have spent, how much cash they have on hand, and some of the information about where they receive the funding from, who their top 5 contributors are, who some of the health industries that, some of the industries are that contribute to their campaigns, and you can click on some of this information about viewing more data. Now, the reason why this is important, not just so that you know who the elected officials are and where they're getting their funding from, but also so you can get a sense of who some of the most important people are in the community that are supporting that candidate. And if you get that information, then you'll find that you might have a little bit more leverage, especially if some of those folks are people who are supporting your particular museum. So I just had a note, someone was looking for Harry Reid, so we're going to look at the 2010 profile for Harry Reid. And you'll see this gives you information about what he's raised, what he's spent, who some of the contributors are, who some of the industries are, etc. So that should be useful to you. Now another resource is Vote Smart. And so we click on the Vote Smart site, and this is where you get some information, again, about some of the various ballot measures and information going on in the states. And if someone wants to send their zip code into the Q&A box, we will look for some information on that specific zip code. Now, while we're waiting for that, I will enter in a zip code in California. Oh, wait, we've got one here, 89509. Let's go ahead and enter that one. And when we get to that, we see the result for Reno, Nevada, what some of the elections are, the congressional general election, the gubernatorial general election. And when we click on these links, we get access to the information about that specific election, who the various candidates are. And when we click on their individual links, we get more information about them. And then we get all the information about the various things down to the state legislative level, the statewide, who some of the candidates are, etc. So this is sort of an interesting site that I believe will help you learn a little bit more about the candidates and the issues. And another quick link I want to show you is the independent sector link, where you've got election resources. This is wonderful because they have a lot of tools for nonprofits on how you engage an election. So you have the Nonprofit Vote website, and this is a great resource for people who are concerned, how you stay nonpartisan, some wonderful guidelines. And of course, most important, why nonprofits, most important in my opinion, why nonprofits should still be involved even though you can't start picking candidates. Another great resource for you that I hope that you will spend some time reviewing. And as we're going through, I just am going to double check and make sure there are no questions. And I think at this point we're good. So I'm going to move on to talk about our next technique, which is voter drives. And I think that voter drives are important, not just, again, because it's civic-minded, but also because it definitely helps get like-minded people out to vote, which will only help your cause. If you are conducting a voter drive, which is basically getting people to register to vote, you are going to be getting many people who are in support of your museum out to the polls. And I think that that really helps when you have a particular issue that's related to museums, but also in helping to get candidates elected who are going to support your cause. So some of the things that you can do to support a register to vote voter drive would be to provide resources. You can have flyers up in your museum suggesting that people register to vote. You can provide flyers to your trustees, your volunteers, to ask them to distribute to others. You can create business cards that help people understand how to vote. One of the most important sort of viral options is to create online and voicemail greetings that will connect, that will help you suggest to individuals that they should be registered to vote. All you need to do is, excuse me, on your signature in your email, simply say, "Are you registered to vote?" And you can give them the link, and we'll show you that link in just a moment. And the role of your volunteers, your visitors, your supporters is really to distribute this information far and wide. So not only do you want to change your online signature and your voicemail to ask people if they've registered to vote, but you also want to see if your volunteers, visitors, and supporters would do so as well. And one of the best things you can do is ask them to go to this Register to Vote page. And again, this was from the congress.org site. And if you scroll down to that election resources, you'll find that there's a Register to Vote link. And as we were just talking about Nevada, I'm going to go ahead and click on the Nevada page. Oops, sorry. That one didn't work very well. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. My computer has decided that it doesn't like this page. It liked it earlier, so I'm not sure what the problem is. But these connections are safe. I don't know why it's giving me a problem right now. But you'll see that you can click on the various links, and that will help you get people registered to vote. All right. So we've talked about how to make sure you know the rules, how to learn about the candidates and issues, a little bit about voter drives. Now let's talk a little bit about creating a candidate survey. So what is this? This is basically something that you would provide to candidates, asking them what they think about museum issues. And it serves a couple of purposes. Not only does it help candidates think about these issues, but it also gets volunteers, supporters, and trustees involved in asking the candidates to fill out the survey. And it's just a very great, easy way to get volunteers and supporters engaged in the election process. It doesn't scare them usually, so it's just a great way to get them engaged. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. There's Zoomerang and SurveyMonkey, who both are online resources that offer you the opportunity to provide a free survey for up to a certain number of respondents. And that can actually work very well for a candidate survey because you may be asking only a few candidates to respond to the survey in your particular area. What you can do with the information, again, it's a great opportunity to connect advocates in your community with candidates. So you can suggest to them, we want to make sure the candidates respond to this survey. The advocates can ask the candidates, and it gets them engaged in the elections. It also is good. You can post responses online. The one caution I would say about this is to just make sure that you're posting all the responses. Sometimes it's best to wait till all the candidates have filled in a form before you post responses, because you don't want to appear that you're choosing one candidate over another. Again, that becomes electioneering, and that can be a little bit of an issue. You'll also want to utilize this information in future advocacy efforts. So when you hear back from all the candidates, and most of them will say museums are wonderful, we love museums are important assets to the community. When you go to them at the state level to do advocacy or the federal level, you can remind them that they said all those wonderful things about museums, and hopefully they will be willing to engage in activities that will support you in the legislature. So that's creating a candidate survey. The couple of things I would say about candidate surveys: you want to make sure that they're not too long. Usually 5 questions is all you want. You want to make sure that you have some fill-in-the-blank questions, but also that the candidate has at least one opportunity to write something. Obviously, it's going to be very short, but about their general work on museum issues, if they've done any, or their general views on them, and what they think about the contribution of the museums to the community. So again, no more than 5 or so questions, but it can be a really important resource for your engaging in elections. Now, one of the things that many museums, although we understand not all, because this won't apply to every museum, it might apply to the larger museums, but to the smaller museums, certainly recognize that facility rental may not be an option. But for larger museums for who it is, sometimes elected officials or candidates might be interested in utilizing a museum's facilities. Now, I should very clearly mention I'm not a lawyer, nor do I play one on TV, so I want to make sure that if you're engaging in this, you are extremely comfortable with the rules. But basically, the scoop is that you may rent your facilities in whole or part to a political campaign for election activities. The principles here are hands-off. Museum officials should stay away from the event, and even-handedness. You need to rent on the same terms to everybody, political or not. So both sides, both business and others in the community, just make sure that you're renting on the same terms and that you are doing your best to stay away from the event. Now, we understand, obviously, again, that this is not going to apply to every museum, but it can be a great way to get candidates in the door. So we strongly suggest that you look at that as an option if it's appropriate for you. All right, I'm just going to check in to see if we've got any questions at this point. And I think we're in good shape. We don't have any particular questions. So I'm going to move on to the next of the 10 techniques. And let's see, so far we've covered making sure that you know the rules, learning more about the candidates and the issues, voter drives that I think museums should be very much engaged in because we want to make sure we get like-minded voters to the polls, creating a candidate survey, which is basically a survey asking candidates of their views on museum issues and the value that they think museums bring to the community, and facility rental, which is something that I think is a great way to get candidates in the door as long as you have even-handedness and generally stay away from that specific event. Now I want to talk about some Web 2.0 techniques because I don't know if you've heard, but apparently the Internet is here to stay. So there are a few things that you can do to be actively involved on the Internet. Now again, I want to be clear that any of these activities are things that you as a 501c3 should be clear that you're not picking one candidate over another, but you can certainly make sure that you're posting information about the elections, about any issues that you're concerned about, as long as it's even-handed and not choosing a particular candidate. So the first is to set up a blog day. And what this is basically if you have a blog or if you know that your trustees or outside partners or schools you work with or volunteers have a blog, set up a day where they can actually be engaged in posting information on their blog about the elections. All you need to do, you might write a short paragraph, suggest that they customize it, but it may be something suggesting that people get to go to register to vote. That might be something that you make sure you send out a week before the registration deadline, or it may be something that you suggest that people get out to vote. And you can just arrange this on one specific day, ask everyone who's got a blog to post something on that specific day, and it really helps deliver the message in your community that the elections are important and people should be involved. Now you can also encourage YouTube videos from town hall meetings and campaign events. While you may not want to post these on your own YouTube channel, you can certainly talk to your trustees, you can talk to the volunteers, you can talk to the visitors for your museum and help them understand how they might be able to post videos from any town hall meetings and campaign events. And this point makes me realize that I should make the point very clearly that although as an official 501c3 in your official capacity, you may not be able to engage in some of these activities, as private citizens, you are always allowed to engage in these activities. So when you take your museum hat off and you put your private citizen hat on, I just want to make sure that you all recognize that no one can take away your right to be involved in campaigns. All right, so another Web 2.0 option is to set up a Facebook page around your organization's involvement in the election. Now again, this is going to be very even-handed. It's not going to pick one candidate over another, but you can, even on your Facebook page that exists now, talk about the voter registration drive you're having at your museum, and have any photos of those particular activities. Don't forget to tag them. Tagging the photos is very important to making sure that people recognize who's who in the photos. And again, I would probably not suggest that if you've had an event at your museum that you post pictures of that, but you may want to post pictures of a voter registration drive or something along the more even-handed lines. If you have any access to social media such as Twitter, MySpace, LinkedIn, even if it's your private access, consider using them to help get out the word about the elections. A Twitter message of 140 characters or less that tells people that the elections are coming up and they should go and vote, or that they should register to vote, that they should learn about the candidates, even linking them to any of these resources that we've shown you. Those are not considered electioneering activities. You're simply providing them with resources. So one option might be to send out a tweet every week before the elections with just a different resource on it, maybe that ballot.org or the votesmart.org site. MySpace is clearly not something a lot of people are using anymore, but some people are. So if you've got a MySpace page, you can post information about that. LinkedIn can be a great resource for getting information about candidates. So if you go to LinkedIn, if you have a LinkedIn page and you're on a network and you've got other people who are joined to you on that network, I'd really strongly recommend that you, when you go to LinkedIn, type in the candidate's name, and you will be shocked at the number of people who are 1 degree of separation from you and that candidate. And that will help you get a little bit more information about who could help you connect to that candidate, even if you're simply asking them to respond to a survey, or who of your museum members might be good people, museum trustees or visitors, et cetera, might be good people to help you learn a little bit more about the candidate. And as you did with Facebook, tagging photos, obviously a lot of people are using Flickr or PhotoBucket or some of those other sites to photo share. And again, this is a great opportunity to show pictures of the involvement your museum has in the elections without, of course, again, choosing a particular candidate. So those are some Web 2.0 techniques. Now, one of the things I also want to talk about is getting out the vote. As a private citizen, you can definitely be engaged in this. Even as a museum official, you can be engaged if you're just getting out the vote in a very nonpartisan way. But basically what it is, it's GOTV. It's not a new TV channel. And it's an opportunity to help people get actually out on Election Day. And there's some old-fashioned ways to do it. One of the things I used to do was get phone lists from the local Board of Elections. So you could certainly call your state or local Board of Elections, get phone lists to ask individuals to make sure that they go to vote. You don't want to tell them to go vote a particular way on a particular candidate, but you do want to make sure that they get out and vote on Election Day. Doorbelling, sign waving, we've all seen this on Election Day and before. Again, very effective ways to get people to the polls. And again, the reason why you're trying to get people to the polls is the more that you get like-minded people to your polls, the more that you're going to have candidates that are going to support museum issues. Now, some of the new fashioned ways to do this, we talked a little bit about email and voicemail taglines, where on your email signature you simply say, did you register to vote? Or on Election Day you say, did you go vote? Or the day before Election Day you say, make sure you go vote. Then you also have the Twitter, Facebook, and text messages to help people get out on Election Day. Now, there's some great AAM resources. I'm going to take you to the voter registration page, and this might actually not tell my computer I can't do it. Great. So yes, this one doesn't. So Texas voter information, this is where you can download the voter registration form or actually register online if you clicked on that particular state. You've got absentee ballot information. Not all states have those. They do have absentee ballots, but some states have early ballots, and you can find out the information about that on the various different state-level issues here. And then I'm checking in. I've got a note here which is very important, and I want to make sure I raise it. There's also a great deal of GOTV activity before early voting in some states. An excellent point, because some states do start their voting even now, and making sure that people understand the issues if they're going to be sending their ballot in earlier, even if they're if you're not raising particular issues with them, but to make sure that they have learned about the candidates one way or another and are getting out to vote, even if it's remotely from their houses. So excellent point. Thank you so much for making that. Now, the other resource that I want to highlight are the web stickers. So this is a great web sticker you can use here, Register Today. Again, it's very nonpartisan. All you're doing is asking people to register. So it's a great item that you can post on your museum's website without getting into any trouble about being involved in electioneering. There's also this Contact Congress one that you could also post, which I think is good. Again, you're not asking people to contact Congress on a particular issue. You're just saying, hey, go be advocates. It's very important for democracy. So those are some of the GOTV activities that you can be engaged in to help make sure that you get people out to vote. Now, the next tool I'm going to talk about are online petitions and campaign sites. So why do a petition? This is something I think is important to really engage advocates. And I should note this might be one of the things that instead of you taking the lead on a petition, it might be something that your board of trustees might take the lead on, that your visitors groups may take the lead on, that your volunteer, your friends, these might be the ones that would take the lead on a petition so that you aren't seen as particularly picking one side or another. And of course, when people do undertake petitions or even sign one, it encourages additional actions. So research has found that if people sign a petition, they are going to be far more likely than the general public to post signs on their front lawns. They're going to be far more likely to be willing to do sign waving. So having them sign a petition does encourage additional actions. Now here are a couple options. I'm actually going to go to the Citizen Speak site because I want to make sure we have enough time to cover the other options. But Citizen Speak is a great site that people can use to set up their own petitions. And some of them are very localized. You'll see this one is the Arts Action Alliance of Broward. I don't know if we have Broward on the call, but you're being used as a fine example. And this really helps individuals. We see that we've got different individuals who are with Broward County, and they have sent this out to other individuals asking them to sign on to this and add a personal statement about why it's important. One of the things I want to highlight is that this personal statement is very important because in addition to getting numbers on your petition, you want to make sure that you get a lot of those personal stories because that's what many of the candidates are looking for and the candidates are looking for in the petitions is they want to know the number of people that are engaged, but they also want to know those personal stories. And I'll also note that petitions are at the very local level. The numbers tend to matter more at the very local level than they do at the federal level, unless you can get, 10,000 people to sign a petition. Then members of Congress may take a note of that. But at the very local level, if you can get 400 people to sign a petition, that tends to be something that the local elected officials will be pretty impressed with. And imagine the power of turning over a petition where a lot of local people have signed saying, we really hope that you will support our museums, especially when you're elected into your particular office, whether it's the city council or the state legislature. So take a look at this site, and again, this might be something that your trustees might want to do or your friends groups, but it's something you can certainly talk to them about becoming engaged in. All right, some more ideas. Asking everyone to develop an Each One, Reach One campaign. This is an opportunity to ask every museum supporter to bring at least one other person to the polls. And again, the reason for doing that is to get like-minded people to the polls. And sometimes it's appropriate, again, this might be something that your board or your friends might do, but to offer prizes or incentives for those that bring the most people to the polls. Because the goal here is to encourage people to vote, and again, not in one particular way or another. And I just had a note before we talk about the first Friday or second Saturday events. I just had a note that this petition stuff works apparently. 10,000 people signed a petition for a national monument in Las Vegas recently. So that tells me that actually if you do get 10,000, you can get 10,000 people, and that can make a great difference. And those personal statements can take that even to the next level. The next point I want to highlight is incorporating election activities, nonpartisan election activities into your first Friday or second Saturday events at your museum. I know many museums have first Friday or second Saturday events, and you're bringing people into the community to have them gather at the museum, understand the value you bring, understand the events that you offer. And as part of that, you can offer them the voter registration information. You might be able to transform that monthly event into a nonpartisan election event. And you can share, using some of the resources that we've provided you, some of the programming with your visitors, with your trustees, etc. The nice thing about this is that it's something that you may probably are already doing. So you don't have to create a whole new event. You don't have to create a whole new meeting. You can just get people together and help them understand what's going on in the community and how they can best be engaged in the election process. Some communities I know have the museum as a polling place. It can be a sort of quote-unquote neutral ground for everyone. We recognize it's not realistic for some, certainly because you may have a very small space, but for others it may be appropriate, and that's certainly something to contact your local Board of Elections about to see if that might be something you can do to actually get people physically into the museum during the election day. And one thing I want to mention, because I think a lot of people don't think about this, but I really love this as an option for getting engaged in the electoral process, is working the polling sites. I did this several years ago. Every jurisdiction needs volunteers to work the polls, and sometimes they're not volunteers. Sometimes you might get paid $50 for the whole day, but it's definitely close to volunteer work. What I did was, you take a day off of work and you definitely work hard from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. But I would encourage you to think about doing this yourself to get other active, engaged advocates to the polls to understand the process. And I think the benefits to them and to you are enhanced understanding of the process and perhaps a little bit more sympathy for people in the long run. So think about it. Think about working the polling sites and seeing what you can do to get people to understand a little bit more about the electoral process. Now I want to wrap up here. I want to mention what other resources are available. We've got Museums Advocacy Day that's happening in 2011. And if you can't attend, make sure someone from your museum or coalition does. That's going to be a very exciting event. I know many people on the call have participated in years past. And what it is it's an opportunity to meet with your elected officials and help them understand a little bit about museum issues. Advocacy, again, is allowed for 501c3s. So you are allowed to go and talk to elected officials about the particular issues that impact you. I also want to make sure that you're very familiar with the speakupformuseums.org website. You'll see here there's information about the Museums Advocacy Day in 2011. You'll see here are the particular dates, and you'll see that Ford Bell spoke on Capitol Hill, so that's pretty exciting stuff. But these will have the registration page up as soon as we possibly can. And just make sure at this point that you save the date. And I'm excited to be engaged in it again this year. And of course, working with your AAM Government Relations team, they are always here to help. If you've got any questions about how to be engaged in the election process, if you're nervous about it, one of the things that you should make sure you do is check in with the people in your community who might be a little nervous about it, just to make sure that any activity you're undertaking is something that everyone feels comfortable with. And I'm going to post up, if you do want to contact the AAM Government Relations staff, I'm going to post up their contact information. And in the meantime, I'm going to check to see if there's any questions or comments at this point. And I think we've answered questions as we've gone along, so I think we're in good shape there. So to wrap up, I want to open a final poll to ask you what you will do next, because I always like to make sure that these training sessions are useful to you. So if you want to go ahead and pick one of the options, I don't think I said it so that you could pick a lot of them. I think just pick the one that you definitely think you're going to do, and we will let the votes come in here. We've got 53, 59, 66. Got a lot of votes coming in. And this is what that electoral process is all about. Got 81% of the votes in, 84. It's actually far more than you get in an actual election campaign. An actual campaign, I think the highest we ever got was 58% of registered voters. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the polls and share our results. So we've got many people who are going to learn about the rules, many who are going to learn about the candidates. 16% of us are going to engage in Web 2.0 activities, and 16% of us are brave to say that they're going to do all of the above and more. And hopefully you've got some other ideas beyond the ones that we just had listed on the poll from this online training session. I know that we really enjoyed putting it together for you. All right, I think we are done with questions. I think we are done with our polls, and I think that we're ready to let you forth and advocate upon the world. So thank you so much for joining this session, and I hope that you'll have some opportunities to be engaged in some of the activities during the election season. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you on a future call.